I was in the Army. I was in Arabic enlist.
Cool. Okay. All right, let's get started here. Welcome. Yeah, please. Well, welcome to Anthony. Thanks for coming, swinging by today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. So, like Danny and Raymond said, we're at the very tail end of the course. So the material is fairly advanced, and we move pretty quickly. So I wouldn't feel too terribly mortified of I don't understand everything that this guy's saying is going over my head. That's totally normal. I mean, they've been here for 11 weeks now. We've been doing this every single day, we've been building up slowly. But like Danny said, he came in, he didn't really know too much, and then I think has done pretty well to learn up to this point. All right, just so that we're aware of what's coming up. So next week is the last week of instruction. So next Thursday will be my last day with you all, where I'm in the official. I'm always going to be the official teacher capacity, but I'm not teaching you anything after the 29th. So we have about maybe a week's worth of stuff left. And then on the 30th, we're going to not be here. We're going to meet at Pivotal Labs at 1871. They're going to allow us to work out of there for the entire duration. Just to give you some idea of what it looks like, Pivotal Labs Chicago. I don't know.
They're out of Merchandise Mart?
They're out of Merchandise Mart. So this is their front. It's the most quintessential, stereotypical dev shop that you've ever seen in your life. But I mean, Pivotal is worth, I think, $18 billion or something like that. They can charge out their developers for $150, $250 an hour. On average, they do exclusively pair programming. And their places pretty much look like this. It's a little bit different now. They have two Apple monitors, Apple Monitor, Apple Monitor, and then it's really true pair programming in every sense of the word. So everything we've been talking about, test-driven development, pair programming, doing the best things with daily stand-ups and weekly retrospectives and things of that nature, they personify that. It's mostly because they have a ton of money and they can't afford to do that. They said, if you want to hire us, this is the process we follow. You're going to have to buy into that. So most of their clients are, State Farm, Geico, Blue Cross Blue Shield, places with enormous budgets. But it should be fun. Our first half of the day there, probably 3 or 4 hours, is just going to be let's take your project and project idea. So they're going to go do their final projects over there, work out of there. We're going to take your final project idea, and we're just going to say who's your target user? Tell me who you imagine to be using this particular thing. Who, what core functionality are you going to have? What's the thing that you need to do right now? What's an icebox item? Something that's nice to have, but I can put on the icebox for a little bit later. And then you're going to start working out of there. You're going to be out of there that day. You probably should come back over here and work over the weekend. Actually, you should definitely come back here and work over the weekend. You're going to be out of there all of the next week. So the 2nd through the 6th, and I will pop in periodically. I'll be there every day for at least an hour or two, just to kind of help out if you guys are stuck on anything. But that's mostly my time to prepare for the next cohort and make sure that they have all their curriculum ready. So we'll be working out of there. I think, Danny, you said you're out for drill on this weekend, right? The 7th? Or you got it?
It would have been the 14th through the 16th, but
okay. All right. So then you're good. Yeah. In that case, you're going to start working on the 30th, and pretty much expect to not see your family or anybody for the next week and a half, because it's a really big push to get your project finished. I'm going to have your last day is going to be here on the 9th at the end of the day. And then Tuesday morning, I'm going to have what's called a code freeze. So you basically have until March 30th until April 10th to do your final project. On the 10th at 9 a.m. or 12 or whatever time I decide to set, it'll be up to you all. It's just sometime before 12 that day. I'm going to have a code freeze, meaning you can't put anything new in, because I guarantee you that something will break, and I guarantee you're going to have bugs, and I guarantee you're going to have what's called technical debt. You're going to be I had to get this out in 5 days. I have to just make these bad decisions now because I need to get it out in 5 days, and you're going to pay for it starting around this time. So I'm going to have a code freeze on the 10th. We're going to start I'm going to basically take your app and just find everything wrong with it and give you a list of things to fix, because I guarantee all software is broken. It's nothing is ever going to be perfect. So I will find you're going to be seeing this code every single day for 24 hours, 20 hours, 17 hours a day, 18 hours a day, or something like that. And you're going to be of course this makes sense that this page goes to the totally illogical page, or this wording makes sense. So I will just kind of tear apart your stuff over here, just to make sure that it's good to go. Mock interview day will be the 11th, so I have way too many interviewers for the number of people who are here, which is a good thing. So I'm going to just choose the best ones, and then you guys are going to be interviewing with them from 9 until 1. We're going to just rotate you between all the different conference rooms. It's going to be around 45 minutes an interview. Should be fun. Should be a good time. I don't know.
Is that going to be like technical, like whiteboard?
Yeah, that? Exactly. Yeah. So the mock interview day is, so we do a lot of career development as well. So they leave here with like a resume that's not like let me take a look at it. Oh, you should fix this font or something like that. Where like most veteran like events are, like they are working one-on-one with them for hours, right? Like hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, and they go back and forth. We go over all like different sorts of whiteboarding and algorithms, and we talk about behavioral questions. Like if I were just to ask you like, why do you want to be in technology? You have to know like right off the bat like how to answer those questions. We kind of taken the foot off the gas pedal for a little while because we have so much React stuff to learn. But it's a culmination because this day I'm inviting basically senior developers and people who do technical recruiting professionally to come in, people who have never seen these folks before, and to just do a mock interview day. 45 minutes, 4 interviews, so it's about 4 hours long. Supposed to mimic a final round interview. We've done that every single time. It's been something that people have said, like, please bring it back every single time. So we do that. I don't know if this is happening anymore, because did Rod tell you about? Okay. There is a company called Echo Logistics who says that they are in for this particular group. So there are potentially, I mean, we don't know until they sign the paperwork, but they emailed us yesterday. They said, we want to come in and, for this particular round. I was like, well, way to come in at the 11th hour. But, that if that does happen, like, we'll probably still have this, but I'm not really sure about that yet. It's still up in the air. Just know that we are talking with another company called Echo Logistics. It's kind of like the background behind UPS, like the company that does logistics behind UPS and other major like logistics companies. But they are coming in. They want to do a presentation. I'm supposed to schedule them in to kind of talk about what they offer, like different benefits, like what you would be doing as an intern there. So I'm feeling good about it. No guarantees ever. I'm feeling good about it. Granger, I'm feeling good about it. And then finally, on the 13th, we'll be at Google for graduation.
So then there'd be we interview with them anywhere from the 16th to the 20th.
Exactly, yeah. So as of right now, Granger for sure, like, I think they're coming in next Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Granger is coming at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. I have to pretty much lock them down into like which day they want to do interviews. You'll be going to their site. You're just going to go to them. I mean, they're a block away, so it's not too far. And then same thing with Echo. Echo someplace downtown. One of these days will be the Echo Logistics interview day. Any other questions on the calendar? Tonight we're going to the Chicago Veteran Developers Hack Night. This is a lot more people than I thought was going to show up, so it's going to be 30 plus or minus 5 at all times. But most of the time, what I've seen based off the Chicago Veteran Developers, because we only host like 1 to 4 meetups a year, I've had most of the people will come. And in terms of Code Platoon people and Code Platoon affiliated people, maybe it's only 1/3. So it's a lot more than it's a lot fewer Code Platoon than I thought it would be. Obviously, you all know Aaron. I don't know anybody else. I don't know who this person is. Bill Cable will be there. This person is a technical recruiter from Innova. Deja was in Delta. Nicole, you know. Victor was at a previous one. Who's this guy? No, this guy. That's my boss. They don't know. Yeah. Scott from Bravo will be there. That's obviously me. And I think Matt Swan from Alpha Platoon will also be there. So there's a pretty significant number of people going. I do need your help this evening, though, you two, and all Code Platoon alumni, because there's so many people and it's a beginner-focused, it's more beginner-focused. I'm going to ask them to code along, which is a complete disaster 9 out of 10 times. So I just need you guys to sit close to people that you don't know, who look like beginners, because otherwise it's kind of like, I'm not seeing the page that you're seeing, well, you missed a semicolon. I'm not seeing the page you're seeing, well, you probably didn't open the window that I asked you to do. So I do need some help in order to get this to run smoothly. It'll be an A flight. I think it's only 2 blocks away, 25 East 2 blocks away from here. Madison and then Washington. Yeah, 2 blocks away from here. And there should be pizza and beer. Like, if there's not pizza and beer, I'll buy you pizza and beer. It's fine.
Deal.
All right, let's get started on React for today. So we're building upon our news site. We're on news site number 3. That should have been finished yesterday. And news site 3 builds on news site 2. News site 2 builds on news site 1. News site 6 builds from news site 5, which builds from all the previous ones, as you know. So I'm going to be using somebody's code from yesterday. I'm going to be using Danny's code, and I'm going to I've cloned down news site 2 and news site 3. I'm going to check out to the branch of Danny. So git checkout Danny, and I have all of Danny's code. I'm going to start moving things over. We'll figure out what we need.
You didn't fix up the Navbar.
You didn't fix up the Navbar? I'm going to be grabbing Raymond's code. Did you fix up the Navbar?
I fixed it in news site 3, but it's still using Bootstrap. It's just doesn't look pretty.
It doesn't look pretty? All right, let's go back to Danny's, and then we can refactor it to make it look nice.
Yeah.
I'm in no rush this morning. All right, so we're on Danny's site. Let's run npm install. And this React app requires a bunch of other libraries. So this npm install basically says, I'm going to grab all those libraries and install it at this particular point. Now, it does take forever, and that's kind of the big thing that people are pushing against. They're like, npm takes forever. If I'm sitting here and I'm being paid $70,000 a year, every hour that I work there, I'm probably paying 40 or 50 bucks. So if you want me to sit here for 4 minutes and you just pay me like, I don't know how much that is, $10. Is that 10? That's not $10. $5 for sitting here doing nothing. That's totally fine by me, but it takes forever. So there's a faster version of npm called Yarn. You could do Yarn or you could use npm. We're just going to use npm because I don't want to go off script. So you said you're visiting from out of town, or you moved here?
No, I moved here
Yeah.
a few months ago.
Oh, yeah. What are you doing here now?
I'm making violins up in Skokie.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty random,
Yeah.
but it's pretty fun too.
That's cool. So evidently I found out. So I used to play violin and viola when I was a kid, like all Asian kids do.
Yeah.
But I bought my instrument. Like my teacher said, like, hey, why don't you come go to this violin maker in New York? Like he's making these great violins. So
Was it Sam Zimmertovich?
No,
Okay.
no, it's not. No, this is a different story. This is not this is a tragic story actually.
Oh, no.
So I went there and then I played a few instruments. It was like this cool thing. It's kind of like Ollivanders in Harry Potter where you get to choose
Yeah,
your wand,
absolutely.
like you get to like play different instruments. So I chose one that I really liked, and the price tag was like $3,000, and that's like it's a very entry level instrument for a violin or viola. And then I found out later when I tried to resell it because I didn't want it anymore. I hadn't played in 15 years. That it actually is a mass-produced Chinese instrument that they marked up, and then there's a deal between the person who imports it and the violin teacher
Right.
just to rip off the students. So
Yeah.
I was like, how much does this actually cost? Because we paid $2,200, 15 years ago, and they're like, it's probably worth like $150, maybe $200. And evidently, this is like a widespread thing. Like, they will import cheap Chinese instruments, mark it up, and then because you trust your violin teacher, they're gonna get a kickback of like maybe $500 to $700 of cash. I was like, that's terrible. That's
Yeah,
really
that's really screwed
yeah.
up.
So be careful. Only go to like high-end places if you ever have kids that want to learn. Some places that have whatever.
Don't trust your violin teacher.
Oh, right. All right, npm start. So this is going to start up the server. Let's take a look at Danny's site, and then we can fix it up in case we have anything that we want to fix.
The world that we live in where you can't even trust your violin.
I was like, and the thing is, like, you go to these people once a week on average for like 40 weeks a year, 50 weeks a year for years. Like you get to know them, you walk into their house and things like that. And I was like, that's kind of crappy. All right, so it looks like we've got, let's take a look. So we have this main homepage. It doesn't look terribly nice right now because that's what it's supposed to look like. We have a nav bar at the very top, as you can see. Let's see, if I click on this, it'll console log out all of the things I'm clicking on. If I go to a specific article, it takes me to the right page. I'm seeing two things that are an issue. So first one is right now it's taking you to article/0, and there's no zero. So we're using what's called a RESTful API. You go to whatever the resource you're talking about and the ID number. ID numbers don't start at 0; they start at 1. So let's fix that, and then we can fix this this thing up here. First things first, let's open it up. I'll just bring it down here, open it up in Sublime. This is my text editor. Text editors are just basically like the Microsoft Word of code. And under source, let's chase this all the way down. So we have app, change the syntax to Babel. Where is this? It's on pages, article page. Where's the? I know I have to add one to the article ID.
On the pages.
What's that?
Is it under pages? Their homepage?
Let's take a look at homepage. So article list component takes a list of articles, and I get the article ID. Yeah, let's do article ID +1.
Or is it at the other line?
Article ID +1. Yep. All right, so let's take a look. So we don't want to have article/0 because there's no such thing as something with a 0 ID number. So if I click this, it'll take me to article/1. That's good. However, I'm skipping over the first one. It doesn't exist anymore. I'm clicking on going home to Fallujah, but I'm getting this one in today in Mosul. You can kind of see just the speed of which this is happening is much greater than Ruby on Rails because it's all loaded in already. So we fixed one thing where when we click it, it sends us to the correct article, but then the article that we're reading is the wrong article. So where is the other component that I need to alter? I need to subtract one probably from the article itself.
Is it on the route?
Let's take a look. I don't think so.
You manipulate the index.
I do manipulate the index somewhere.
It's on,
Maybe it's article. Let's take a look. So the article, no, whatever's passing into article is probably it. So I have my page, it has an article list. Index is index -1.
it is, isn't it? Because you're processing this props.id.
ID is index -. We'll find out. Could be. You could be right. All right. So I refresh the page. If I click this, it should take me to /articles/1, and the article should be going home to Fallujah. Now it's bringing me back to 0. That's even worse. It's somewhere here. But I'm going to leave it to you to chase it down. I'm not sure where it is.
Well, it renders the individual page.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be pages, article page.
Okay.
And
It's on this page.
the ID right there?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's this one -1. So did I alter? This one stays the same. Let's take a look. So we've refreshed the page. Again, when I click on this, it should take me to /1, and it should be going home to Fallujah. But I'm still getting that today in Mosul. So let's break this down a little bit, and let's not like bash our heads against this. So we have our home page, which is a list of which is a bunch of components. Think about Reddit.com or Amazon.com. You have that giant logo at the top. That's probably one component. The footer at the bottom is another component, and the things in the middle will just kind of change. So I have this whole page. It's a home page. So we start there. So we have app.js is our main entry point. We see that whenever anybody makes a GET request to this / here, I'm taking them to the home page. home page is up here. It lists out a bunch of article lists. When I click on it, I'm going to get the ID, and I'm actually just going to push in the article ID itself. So if I click this and it takes me to /articles/1, I'm going to go back into my app.js and see, like, okay, whenever anybody makes a request to /articles/whatever ID we get here, we're going to go to the article page. The article page loads up the wrong article. There it is. So when we make a request to like /1, like right now it was just looking for the news article at the index of number 1. So if I subtract 1 from it, I believe this will work at this point. Page, home to Fallujah, /article/1, and then it takes me to going home to Fallujah. So that's how I would, like, because we were just kind of like guessing and finding all the different IDs. So I was just thinking, let's just stop. Let's evaluate the problem we've got and just walk through it. All right, so we fixed that up. Let's get this this kind of ugly looking thing fixed up a little bit nicer. So we want like an actual header so that we're not just having a bunch of things looking like this. So again, we start with the app.js. Whenever we make a GET request, we take a look at all this stuff here. So it looks like we have an app nav, and app nav is the nav bar that comes up. So if I go to app nav, it looks like right now all of this is here, but it doesn't look nice. So if you look under app.js, he's bringing a bunch of stuff in like Navbar, Jumbotron, Button. Like these are all things that React Bootstrap gives to us for free. I don't think you're actually using that in here. Am I right on that? I don't think you need these. I think we can actually put them in here because let's take a look at just like nav React, Navbar. Just going to click on this first link here. And it looks like if you want your Navbar to look like this, then all you need to do is copy and paste this type of code, and then it'll be there. So I'll grab all of this, and instead I will put it over, I'll just put it here.
I think you need your browser router on the other one.
What's that?
Your browser router, line 3.
Oh yeah, you are correct. This one does go here. Now there's probably a bunch of stuff I don't need because I'm thinking this is just a little bit too much stuff. I was like, why are you importing so much garbage? So I need app nav because it's here, so that's good. Do I need article teaser? I'm not using it anywhere else on the page, so I can remove it. I also don't think I'm using article anywhere. So I'm not using the article component. I'm also not using this article list component. I am using homepage. I need this, and I need article page. I generally try to help myself out, so I'm not looking at a whole bunch of imports that are like unorganized. This is stuff that comes from libraries, the first thing, and then this is stuff that comes from the things that I've written personally. So I like to break that up to look a little something like this. So we'll go back to app nav. So we're bringing in all of these things. So it looks like I didn't write navbar, I didn't write nav, I didn't write nav item, I don't think I need nav drop down here. So it looks like I need to bring in navbar, nav, and nav item. React Bootstrap. And instead now I want to just throw all of this in here. So maybe I will bring the navbar down here. And the corresponding closing one. Looks like I'm going to be rendering out this create nav bar. So I'm going to just, maybe I'll take away this nav over here. And instead of returning like an href out to the page, it looks like I'm going to have like some of this nav bar header stuff going in its place. Nav bar You have to have a nav in here. Capital N. The difference between the capital N and lowercase n. Any.
Capital N is bringing in a component. The lowercase n would just be HTML along.
That's correct. You got it. So the lowercase nav that we had a little bit earlier, which was this. This is an HTML element that's brought in for free. Like that's just part of HTML. The capital N is like a React component. In our case, it's going to be the Bootstrap React component. It looks like I'm just creating a bunch of nav items is really what I'm doing. So I'm going to not do an href here. I'm just going to have a nav item. It's still going to go to nowhere. The key is going to be that on click. I believe I just do this. I think we're good. So instead of having a bunch of links come out, I'm going to have nav item components come out in its place. If this works, I'll be very surprised. Oh, okay, so I need to get rid of this semicolon that says I don't like, it doesn't like that. So if I get rid of it, see what we get. So now we have that magic that looks a little bit nicer. So let's take a look, make sure the functionality is still there. When I click on home, I expect it to console log home because I think we're going to be using that today. Home, opinion, world, national politics, everything still looks good. If I click on this, it'll take me to /article/1. We just fixed it up. It looks good to go. Feeling okay?
So you just changed, what was it?
Yeah, sure. Let me do it side by side. How's that? Split the screen. Here, get rid of the left side. I'm just going to undo this a bunch of times to go back to the beginning. This is what you had at the very. This is what you had at the very beginning. You have import component and React from React here, and you just created a bunch of links. So you had a navbar using the HTML block called nav, and all you were doing here was returning a bunch of links, hrefs. Instead, what I did was I took the original code from React Bootstrap. It looks like everything was wrapped around with navbar, and the main things that they were really changing is this thing that says link, and this other thing that says link, and this thing that says drop down. I don't really need this portion, so I removed it, and it looked like I just needed to have a navbar with a nav, and all these little links that you see up here, all it really does is it's just a nav item. So what it ended up doing on this right side was I had one single return with a navbar and then the nav, and then I knew at this point I just needed to create a whole bunch of small little nav items. So instead of doing a bunch of little links here, I just returned a bunch of nav items. And I didn't change, I literally only changed these two letters and added this little bit here. So we're at a good starting point. We're going to move all of Danny's code over from where it was, and we're going to move it into new site number 3. So I'm going to close this out for right now. Don't save this. And the instructions are pretty explicit. We want to copy only the files and not the test files as well. So I have new site 2. I'm putting it inside of new site 3. It says that I need app.js. So I'm going to bring app.js from here and dump it in its place. I need to bring in the component articles, the article component. Probably the app nav, probably all of this stuff, actually. Article list, article teaser, app nav, and then we need to bring the home page and also the article page. And again, we're just building on the previous day's worth of stuff. So we can bring these two things in and replace these two. All right, so I'm going to cd out one level, so change directory going up one level. I'm going to cd into new site number 3, npm install, and I'm going to start. Again, this will take another 3 minutes to go, so we can shoot the breeze for a little bit. Let's see. Oh yeah, tomorrow morning I need you all to think of at least 2 to 3 project ideas. We're just going to get them all out. We're going to vote on it, and that's going to be it. I will, yes, I do need to do that thing. I will get you all the final projects that people have done so far. Get all final projects.
We're kind of having clear spot. Do you have any suggestions? On
Nope, I'm not going to decide these things for you. So get all final projects, videos and code and proposals.
So do most groups, do they shoot to, do they have a goal to do both Rails and React, or do they usually pick one? Or
So I will say that we've gotten significantly better at teaching the material. So at the very beginning, it was just like, let's just do Rails because nobody gets it. Charlie and Platoon was similar. They're just like, let's just do Rails because we can't do Rails and React. Then Delta, Alex's cohort, and because Alex is going to be on your team, I'd recommend doing Rails and React. Like his team was the first one to actually fully implement Rails and React. Okay. So what I would recommend for you is there's something called React on Rails. It's a gem, but it's also very early in its development. So it's like people are trying to fully integrate React, the whole framework, into Rails so that the two ship together, because Rails does backend stuff really well. Like it's just very, very easy to get everything to work. And then on the front end, React does things really well there, but it sucks at backend, and Rails sucks at front end. So the two put together, they have an entirely new like kind of developer called React on Rails.
That's a Ruby gem or a package?
It's a Ruby gem. So you'd still be working mostly in Ruby, and then just the front end portion, you're going to have components that are just in React. So that's one way of going about it. What might be easier, to be completely honest, is having 2 people work on the Rails API backend, where you talk to the database, you get a bunch of data, you turn it into JSON, you send it to the front end. Like you're going to have it living on localhost 3000, and then you'll have the API, like the React portion living on like 3001, just making requests to 3000. Does that make sense?
So when you store it as a JSON file, do you have to put that in your view folder?
So there's something called JBuilder that's built into Rails. So it's kind of like saying, if I take, let's say I have a person class with a first name, last name, and address or something like that, I can grab the entire object, throw it inside of JBuilder, and it'll turn into a JSON object that I pass over there. He says, do you have a view for the JSON? And you don't
need a JSON?
Yes.
Because pretty much you're not going to have a view in Rails. That's all React. React's going to be your view.
Right.
So how when you're fetching that JSON file, I'm just thinking of where you're going to store it. I'm just thinking, are you going to store it in the view folder, or are you going to store it in another?
No, you make an API. So the idea is I'm going to make an API request. I'm going to make a request to the database, get a bunch of data back. I'm going to format, the controller is going to format the data into JSON and just send it. Oh, okay. So I don't have a view. Instead of formatting and doing all the like the at events equals event.all and iterating over it inside of a view, I just create a JSON object full of all the events and I shove it to the React front end. So the front end will take care of all the presentation, the React layer. So Rails does not, it's basically everything. The view is taken care of by React. So Rails does not do the view anymore. That's all.
And so like what should we like, remember you had the capabilities of our single project, we should think like that times 10.
We should probably think of that times 10. This dot create navbar. Why is it says create navbar is not defined? Let me kill the server and just run. All right, so it's unhappy. It says create navbar is not defined, but It worked on the old one. I'm not sure why this is broken now. Just to avoid this for right now, is it okay if we just move it down
Put it in the
into the render? Yeah. I'm not sure why this is happening. Get rid of the create navbar. I'll have just everything live inside the render. I'll let output equal okay. And all right, so it says all article teasers is not defined in article list. Same thing. I'm not sure what's going on. Article list. This is probably something we should probably figure out. Do you want to go down this rabbit hole of trying to figure it out? Because I'm not sure why this is happening. I'm going to ask my wife.
Well, it looked like it rendered first, and then when it rendered again, then it broke.
Okay.
When I had the same issue, and so at some point it says possible byline. So where's that?
In article.js, but I didn't do anything. I just resaved. Okay, let's go to article.js. We can just troubleshoot this.
Where's the byline?
Oh, it says possible byline.
So it doesn't recognize this.
So there's some sort of issue with this. The coloration is, you see how like this has possible image and render and this one doesn't?
Was doing that in Lifecycles too.
I am okay with this. Oh, it's let byline this dot. If it exists, I'm going to make it an HTML element and return it out to the screen. Let's see. React function is not defined or something like that. It's probably, let's take a look. All right, so let's take a look at this Stack Overflow. It says shuffle cards is not defined. Shuffle cards is over here, and it's called right down over here. This dot shuffle cards, and it'll click instead of this dot shuffle cards. The reason is because shuffle cards is defined within your component, which is accessible from the this property. If you decided without this, maybe it is not this dot. That. See if that fixes anything. So it's still an issue. If you get rid of this dot for these two, does that change things? All article teasers is not defined, so we're back to article lists. So we're just kind of going back and forth. I don't think you need that return. All right, so I broke something else. Possible byline. Don't think you need that. I think at this point,
I think you need another return because it's not. There's no implicit return.
right, so we're broken on article. Possible byline is not defined, so I think we can go to article, and now I think we need this in the front.
You don't need it binding or anything.
Don't think so. Now we're broken on article list. All article teasers is not defined. Article teasers. This dot. Figure something out. Okay. All right. So I think, are we good now? Article /1. And let's see if does this still work. Cool. All right. So everything works. So it appears that when you create functions, you can't make them anonymous functions.
Why did it work in the other one?
I don't think it did. I'm not sure. Short answer is I'm not sure, but we fixed it. So what I did was I figured like maybe the anonymous function wasn't the greatest thing to use here. So what I did was I had possible byline, and then it doesn't need any arguments, so it's just an empty parentheses, and this is the body here. When you call this dot possible byline, when you didn't have the this in the front, it wasn't sure what possible byline came from. And in order to invoke it, you need to call it here like this with the parentheses for these two bottom ones. So, all right, so we moved everything over. Everything looks okay, and we're going to start moving on to like the main start of new site number 3. So up to this point, we've been doing things. Where's that news.json? If you remember and you take a look inside of here, we were just importing news as a React module straight from just this file. So right now, like we're just reading from a static file, and that's okay for the purposes of just learning. But more often than not, kind of like your final project, if you decide to have 2 separate apps, one's with React and one's with Rails, your React front end is going to make API requests. It's going to ask for information from a backend somewhere. So we're going to connect our front end instead of using just a static file like this on line number 4. We're going to connect our front end to an API web service that provides news data for us. This API is actually built in for us. If you take a look over here, you take a look at all the dependencies we have now. One of them is, where did it go? One of these things is actually running a separate port. You jump all the way back up here. It says you have a web server listening at 3001. So you can see everything running on 3000, and on 3001, there's actually a web server listening. I can actually hit this in the browser by going to /API/articles, and it'll just render out the same thing that was in the file, but is not listed in one file. This is actually living on a website somewhere. The website is hosted locally by us.
So what created that port or that server?
One of these dependencies did it. I am not sure which one it is. I think it might be concurrently. So it's concurrently running like an API server, but I'm not exactly positive. One of these, I'll give you a hint. One of these does it. So whichever one is added to package.json here, that's not in news site 2 is the one that's doing it. All right, so we visited /API/articles listening on port 3001. This endpoint returns a list of articles, and those articles can be filtered by any property that we want to, like, and the value of the request, the filter request parameter should be set to a JSON string, so it looks a little something like this. So we're gonna be writing code inside of this API. It's all this stuff lives here. That's actually where it is. Raymond? This API folder
Yeah.
has all this stuff inside of it.
Okay.
Inside of source, there's a new API folder for us. We call it Articles API. We're going to be filling out these particular API methods that we're going to use. And we're going to essentially, we're going to say like, we're going to fetch an article by one specific ID. So I'm going to grab the ID. I'm going to write the code itself to make an API request out to 3001/API articles to get something based off the number that's inside of there. We're going to do maybe fetch an article based on a filter of some sort, and then we're also going to filter an article by section. So when I click on opinion or I click on world or something like that, I'm going to get all the ones that are based off of that. So this giant block of text in reality is basically like it's just text that shows up on the page. So it's like I have a title called Going Home to Fallujah. Like it's all the contents of your article just shoved into one giant nonsensical block of text. Your job is to grab all of this nonsensical text and present it out to this user. This is what happens behind the scenes for all New York Times articles, all CNN, everything like anything that has data looks more or less like this. Your job is to make it not look like this so that people can consume that more easily. All right, so we created this articles API.js file, and that's our primary, the primary function of this particular file is to make requests to the API and then get you information. So they're all stubbed out right now. There's nothing inside of them. Our job is to fill out all of these things. You can see at the bottom, just like when we do export default for app.js all the way down here, this app export default for app is saying like other classes are going to use this entire file. When we take a look inside of, let me close out some of these windows, because we're not dealing with half of these. For us, we're saying we don't have a class inside of here. Like before we had like a module, like we had like an entire component class. Right now we just have a bunch of small little like methods more or less, but we need to use them outside. So what we're saying is we're going to export not the entire class, but a specific object, this hash that we have here. I can call this fetch article by ID. I can call this whatever key that I want, but the value is going to be this particular thing. So I'm going to be able to use all of the methods that are inside of this particular file in other files. All of the tests for this are right over here. So our job is to more or less get all of these tests to pass. And then we will know for certain that this will work. So I don't know. How do I get started on this? So we talked yesterday about fetch. Remember, we use fetch to make a request to something. So let's Google it. Fetch JavaScript. We can just kind of take a look at what we've got here. I don't want to look through all this. Give me an example.
It was on the README. I can.
Yeah, send it to me real quick.
Slide to.
We had some boilerplate to get us started. Let me get rid of this line, which I don't need, and this line, which I also don't need. So we're going to pass in an ID. It's going to give us some sort of ID number. So we need to make more or less a request to localhost 3000/API articles / this particular article ID. I need to make this pass. So does this actually just work on its own?
Yeah.
It does? Okay, let's take a look. So how do I run the tests? We haven't done this very much so far. Just npm run test. Running through everything, main things that are okay. So we have a whole bunch of it looks like we have only two tests that are failing. So if you take a look over here, these are the two tests that are failing. As of right now, fetch articles is not looking good for us, and then fetch articles by section is also not working. So actually, all we needed to do was just grab this bit of code that was already in the README and make that work. So so this particular method is called fetch article by ID. It takes an ID number. It's going to interpolate it right over here. It means just grab it and shove it in its place right over here. I think that's pretty much it. So let's talk next about section. How do I get a section?
I think what confused me yesterday, it took me like a long time to figure this out.
Yep.
Was like the whole promise and the timeouts with the bends. It was like, I guess it was like more of an abstract example with the whole house and the frame and all that. And I didn't know that until I console logged it. I didn't know that fetch was actually a promise.
Fetch returns a promise.
Yeah, returns a promise. And then I didn't. So what I was doing before using this code, I was like copying and pasting the new promise and doing the timeouts. I thought I needed it to put a certain timeout in order to run the order I want or whatever. And then at the very bottom I did like fetch article by ID, then fetch article by section, then fetch articles. And I was just going down like the wrong path.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were synonymous with each other. Then I thought, yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, cool. I guess just to summarize that for the video and for remote, the idea behind fetch is that it's an updated AJAX. AJAX stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So if you go to the bottom of your Facebook page, you'll notice that little circle comes up and then it'll automatically load new things. And the reason that's happening is JavaScript detects that you've reached the bottom of the page. It'll make a request in the background and grab all the new stories and then shove it to make your page a little bit longer. It gives that idea of infinite scroll. But the issue with AJAX is that it reads very difficultly for developers. It looks like you can AJAX, like it looks all the way, it looks like a Christmas tree of doom because like you have to chase it all the way down. So they decided to create fetch so that you can read things from top to bottom. And this, instead of reading like Christmas tree of doom that looks more or less like a horizontal line at a 45-degree angle going down, you can read it more or less like English. Fetch returns a promise. So what that means is I'm going to make a request in the background to this thing. And then if it resolves right away, that's great, but I don't really care about that. It's kind of like I bring my clothes to my dry cleaner, I drop it off. They're not going to clean it right away. They're going to give you a little ticket that says like, I received it, you've paid for it, just bring me this ticket back. It's a promise that says, I will clean your clothes by 5 p.m. today. And then after that promise is fulfilled, then I'm going to execute the next thing. Then I will so once that promise is fulfilled, I reach the 5 o'clock comes around and I come back with the ticket. I give them the ticket. Then they give me my clothes. Then they go find my clothes. Then they go give me my clothes. And then I walk out the door. Similarly here, I'm going to make a request to this particular URL. It's a fetch request, which is an API request or an AJAX request, something that's happening in the background. That they're just going to return you a promise. They may or may not be able to execute this right away. If they can, then the promise will be executed within a second, but they still return you a promise of some sort. Once you get that promise back and it's fully resolved, then I'm going to execute this code. And then I'm going to execute this code. That's pretty much all that it is. I actually don't know if you need this at all. Run the test one more time. It looks like, yeah, we don't need that little bit of code. So we still have those same 2 failing tests. So this next section is I'm given a section instead of an article ID, so I can't just pass in, because if the section is like world news or New York news or business or something like that, I can't just go /API/articles/business like that. I don't believe that works. Let's find out. Business. Nope. It's also not running. Let's cd into news site 3, npm start. But this is not how we do things. So generally speaking, when we talk about query strings, when you go into any sort of URL, it's going to look a little something like this. You have that question mark, and then if you're talking about shoes, it'd be like size equals 10, and which is, I think this is %20 is the code, which is the code for space, and color is equal to red or something like that. So if you look inside your URLs, you see this question mark. Everything that comes afterwards is what's called a query string. So you can easily go back and get that later. So for us here, I'm going to have to use a filter. So after articles, I'm going to just add this little question mark where filter equals, and I believe it's supposed to look a little something like this. So it has to be organized more or less like this, where byline is this, or where section equals whatever. So I need to create myself a little query string for myself, a little query string to look something like this. So I think it's just like filter equals opening and closing, where and then section is equal to the section that you wrote. I think it's this. I'm not positive. We'll find out. And then you can't have spaces, so you just have to remove all of these extra little spaces. And I'm going to just throw it right here. Let's see if this works. All right, so it did pass the test. We have one failing test at this particular point. I'm going to go back and just pause for a second. I'm sure people got lost at this particular section. So the new site, so whenever you talk with a specific API, they want you to make your URL look a specific way. So if I were to go to like name any website that provides a service. Grubhub. So Grubhub has an API. It's a way that you as a developer can interface with Grubhub. God, I need to find the public API. Sure, Python, whatever. Does Grubhub have a public API? I'm gonna go to Spotify. If I go to Spotify, there's a way that I have to let me give a quick start endpoint reference. That's fine. So whenever I make a request to https api.spotify.com/v1/album/whatever an ID, I'm going to get an album back. But I need to provide it I need to provide the ID number in order to get the information back. Similarly here, when I go to like related artist to artist number 5, I have to go to api.spotify.com/v1/artist/ whatever Pharrell's ID number is, and then go to related artists. So there's a specific way that they want you to format your URL. For us here, we did that right away with this API/article/1. But oftentimes you're not just passing in an article. You might be passing, you might not be passing more just an ID. You might be passing in a type. You might be going with a user ID, there's authorization. Like there might be just more than one thing that you need to pass in. When it's just freestanding text, you cannot just pass it in like you would originally want, which looks a little something like this. Because there's a bunch of spaces, there's a bunch of like extra characters that don't exist inside of a URL. You can't have spaces, you can't have new lines. So I have this question mark here that begins a query string. So the filter that I'm asking the API to use is this thing here, but instead of having all this with extra strings and lines and stuff like that, I'm actually just removing all the lines. Change section. I change byline to section, and then I need to interpolate this section that the person is passing in here. So I need that $ section for interpolation. And that's how I got this particular one. Finally, for this last one, just to save a little bit of time, I just want to get all the articles. And if there's no filters, then I'll set filters equal to nothing. And then I will just call it. So let's read through this. So if there are no if there is some sort of filter inside of here, I'm going to return fetch. I'm making an AJAX request to this particular URL where the filters are, and then I'm just interpolating the filters in. Once I get that back, I'm going to use the response JSON and then push that out to the screen. If there are no other filters, then I'm just going to reach out, get all the articles, and then turn it into JSON and send it back out. Let's take a look, make sure we pass all of our tests, and then we'll take a quick break. Looks like all the tests are passing. It's pretty happy. I think we finished that one. Okay. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll finish this one up.
If filters, the bang, could you change that